Yeah, are we good?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, madam.
All right. So, like Mr. Peel mentioned, my practice is based out of a southern state in India called Telangana, Hyderabad. But we also have a collaborative practice based out of Kerala, which are probably is more familiar to all of you, very similar in landscape. So I have had the fortune of working in India and United Kingdom. And we've worked on projects from the southernmost tip of India, from Kerala, all the way till Kashmir. But our work is neither confined in a particular region, a style, or category. And I'd like to believe that it's not devoid of any core philosophy, despite having so many nuances. However, today I think I would mainly be sharing my experiences of our hospitality projects with all of you. There are mainly two reasons that I thought it was, more interesting for us to connect on this. One, because I thought it will resonate a little bit more with all of you from the island nation that promotes tourism in a big way. And second is, I think as architects, let's face it, hospitality projects are just simply a lot more fun than the commercial ones. So the projects that you are going to witness today are married to topography, to a lot of financial constraints and societal realities. But what I can assure you is that they are divorced from any mass production assembly line, even within the multiple rooms of a project where almost every room is different from the other. I'd just like to tell you all, if it's okay with the organizers, if you want to ask me any questions during the process, I'm happy to answer them. I don't think you'll be breaking the flow of my thought, but I leave it to the organizers if they are okay with entertaining questions in between. Is that okay?
Yes, madam. Sure.
Yeah, can I continue?
Yes, madam. You can continue.
All right. All right. Thank you. So I thought it would be nice to kind of take you through, since we have worked on many topographies and many parts of India, it would be nice to kind of try and take you through that within India. So the first project I'm going to share with you is a gorgeous location up at 10,000 feet above mean sea level. You can see that it's on the foothills of the Ladakh range of the Himalayas. Um, We'll try and zoom in a little bit closer, try getting closer to the context. That's the Siachen Glacier. And what we are looking at is the base of the glacier in a place called the Nubra Valley in Leh. That's to give you a little bit more context. Let's zoom in a little bit more closer in. So that's really the valley over there, which is called the Nubra Valley. The project that I'm going to share with you is called the Stone Hedge. It's an interesting story of four brothers who grew up in a little village called the Hunder village, went to a local school, went taking their cattle, their sheep on their walks, or rearing them while they went to school, but eventually went to Oxford. One became a bureaucrat, but eventually they had this very strong urge to give back to their village, and they wanted to build a state of the art uh, boutique hotel within Nubra. Now, I must tell you, Nubra typically has a temperature ranging from minus 25 degrees in winter to summers up to 14, 15 degrees. So it has extreme temperature, and for about 6 months of the year, there's only one direct access that leads to Nubra from Lake. And that gets completely cut off during winter. So there are a lot of challenges in terms of how you mobilize. So most of the resorts also in this area typically function only for 6 months of the year. And I think that was the whole process that we wanted to kind of change in terms of what was possible using absolutely local materials. So I'm going to just show you a little video. Please tell me if you can hear the audio, or do I need to increase the volume? Is the audio? Yeah, I thought that video would give you a little bit of a eye candy treat and a context to the kind of gorgeous backdrop that the property had. Taking you through a little bit on the design process, I think it was a very conscious decision to try and maximize the sun's path in terms of the planning. So all the rooms are essentially facing the southern side, go along the whole sun's direction. You can see that we have two streams that were running through the project, through the plot, and the buildings are kind of done in a way that there's also adequate space and thought left for, future expansion at a later point, something that we are doing right now for them. And I think the idea was essentially to maximize the absolutely gorgeous view of the mountains and the southern landscape. Now, what was interesting here was that we thought we should try and demonstrate how effective plumbing and heating systems that can be deployed within a building by also using the right kind of local material and importantly, the right insulation can set a benchmark in how these properties can actually function all year through and not be restricted to, the harsh winters. To quickly give you a sense of, the palette, the material palette, we essentially went back to the vernacular language of clay, and they use mud bricks because of their beautiful ability to retain heat within. So we made all the bricks on site with using mud, and there was a little bit of cement we added to give it a little reinforcement. All the stone that you see was locally sourced within 10 kilometers radius. Every effort was made given the difficult terrain. We were very, very conscious of not bringing material that was very intensive on the transport logistics. So what you see is that we've used essentially almost everything that was local, right from pebbles in the bathroom to, there's a very interesting plant over there called the umbuk, which is a red weed, really. We used that, treated it with polyurethylene, and used it in screens. And this is what you see. So you can see that our material didn't come from very far. This was exactly where we had to go. To give you a few more images, that little selfie spot you see is made with umbuk, the red weed that I spoke about. Again, the idea was, can we push beyond the vernacular language and try and create an ode to the vernacular, but a very modern structure, because most structures there were essentially ground structure only. This was the first building that was built in that entire region that was G+2. And that's to give you a little bit of a night view of what that looks like. The restaurant was intentionally placed on the topmost floor to see the view like this, and that's the semi-open space. And then there's an indoor restaurant as well. That's some more gorgeous views. And you can see that the terrain is so different in summer and winter. It's almost like there's a splash of color that's been thrown in. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Let me just get back to the screen, please. I'm sorry about that. Let me just turn off my phone. Yeah. Is that visible? Are we back? All good?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah, so that's again to give you some sense of the interior of the room. Again, you see the mud bricks and the stone in its absolute exposed glory. All the wood was locally done from the nearby areas, and all of the furniture was built on site too. A few months later, we were asked to upgrade the rooms and make them a little bit more plush, and I suppose we were under pressure to up our own game. So we tried using a lot of mud plasters over here with colors and a lot of stone on the flooring. That's to give you some of the suite rooms, as they call it. That's what the bathrooms look like. Like I said, we just had to go up to the riverbed, pick up the pebbles, and work our way through them. And even the bathrooms have the most beautiful picture perfect views. These are some more new bathrooms. Like I said, we were under pressure to up our game, and by then they had, buckled under all the new city syndrome. So tiles were available. I have to say we were guilty, and we did use a little in like one bathroom. That's what you see here. Speaking of Leh, now you can imagine that there's a lot of traveling across mountains and valleys that one would have to do to get to various parts of Ladakh and Leh. So obviously, as a woman, I think one of the first things that I realized during all of our site visits was that either I had to create a superwoman bladder or start using diapers, because the condition of the public toilets on the way was absolutely pathetic. They were unusable, there was ice filled. Yes, they were dry toilets, but you can imagine that they might not smell bad because of the cold temperature, but they were just impossible to use. So by the end of the project, we did get the client to start working on a series of public toilets, again using the same language of, the mud bricks. And I will just take you through what followed. What was extremely painful for us became an opportunity for a new project. So we designed a couple of public toilets with cafes in them. So it would be a pay and use, there'd be a little bit more accountability. And we got in a lot of local artists over there to kind of work their way through and create very cheerful spaces that were slightly more pleasant in experience. Moving from up north, the next project that I am going to share with you is in a place called Tadoba, which is in the state of Maharashtra. Now, I must tell you, Maharashtra, the place Tadoba is essentially known for its very, very good sighting of tigers in the Tadoba National Reserve. Our site was just outside of the reserve. We had a beautiful natural stream from the reserve that was flowing into the site. I'll just try and give you a little bit more context so you understand the topography or the terrain of the project. So you can see that there's the entire green reserve on the outer periphery of our project. Yeah, so what we did end up doing is that, again, we felt like there was a certain wilderness to the whole site that we had to respect and respond to. So there was absolutely no landscaping done. We tried and kept it all wild. A lot of bamboo that was used within the site. We created these wading pools for each cottage that just opened out into the wilderness. Now, taking you through the site plan, you can see that the entire stream kind of cutting the entire plot into two parts. So we built individual cottages, all with its own wading pool, and tried and got inspired by the local tribal craft, which was doing some very beautiful thatch over there. So what you see here is the layout plan, where there are twin cottages, single cottages, some of them, connecting. That's to give you a little bit of the massing that we worked on. We wanted the cottage to almost, blend in with the whole space outdoor. We looked at a lot of adaptive reuse of old doors, etc., from other spaces. So we wouldn't be cutting too many trees and using wood locally. Tadoba also has a lot of natural stone from parts of Telangana, which is called Tandur, Betam Cherla, all very, very strong, gorgeous looking limestones that we sourced into the project. That's to give you a view of the room from the inside. That's just a few more photographs of the cottage as you see it. Yeah, a few more. The thatch is all done locally. So it was interesting because I think the client and we were so ingrained in this entire process together that the client ended up using all the staff. They did not have a single staff that was, trained in hospitality from a hospitality school, so to speak, but chose to work with the tribals in the villages nearby and tried and gave the space a truly local experience. That's to give you a sense. So the flooring that you see here is the Betam Cherla stone. We used a lot of the, cement oxides on the walls. Again, very little paint gone in there. The bathrooms are semi-open, semi-covered in parts, and that's the open shower to give you the real jungle experience. This is the part of the whole restaurant area that you see. The entire thing, this large curved building facing the pool, and you can still see the wilderness around you. Give you a sense of the section. That's the outdoor part of the restaurant. That's again the night view of what you can see. We worked with a very interesting organization that worked on all the bamboo that was sourced again locally from Maharashtra, treated, used as supports. You can see all of it on the thatch truss here. Would you like to ask me any questions at this point, or can I continue before we move further down south? Can I continue?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so moving further south, and I think we are moving to a landscape and topography that may seem more familiar to you. So we'll go down to Kerala, where a large part of our practice happens. This is a place called the Marari Kula. It's abutting the beach of Marari. The interesting thing over here, I think, like most coastal lands, is that the coastal regulation zone does not allow us to build very close to the beach. So while you don't end up seeing the beach from any part of the resort, you do end up hearing the waves because of the quiet that's been created inside. Here again, you can see that we've used a lot of the local material, the thatch, which is done by the locals. It's designed as a cluster of various pods. We were very inspired by the ocean and the pods. So you have the green pod, the blue pod, and the white pod, which kind of, become a part of the pearl shell. So there's a lot of curvilinear forms that have been taken here. That's the reception block. In fact, even the chandeliers, every artifact was made from a byproduct on site. The chandelier was made from a root that we found on the beach that had, just come by. The reception area has this whole oxide language. The restaurant has a lot of Kadapa stone with, oars of all the various kinds of boats in that region. To give you a little bit on each room, like I said, each room was a little pod. So it had, again, its own little deck space with an awning and, hammock and a pool. And the language here, again, is extremely minimalistic. It's just colored oxides and thatch. The beds were all made with, all built in. So the idea was, can we reduce the use of any furniture that would have to be made, brought from elsewhere. That's the green pearl room with a wardrobe, luggage rack. That's the white pearl, which is the suite room. And to give you a sense of what the room feels like when it opens. So there were about 450 coconut trees on this site when we first set foot, and we didn't cut a single one of them. So every layout kind of kept changing based on, the position of the tree and not our drawing, really. That's the blue pod room. Again, we have a thing for open showers. I think they make for a lovely experience. So we use a lot of natural stone in the toilet as well. So while the WC and the hand wash are enclosed, the shower is entirely open. Again, to give you a little video.
If you look at how locals have lived in this location for many generations, homes are set back from the beach. It was never crowded.
I'm sorry, I think I'll just go back to that video. Sorry about that.
If you look at how locals have lived in this location for many generations, homes are set back from the beach. It was never crowded. So while we had permission to build 4 times as many guest rooms, we decided to not exceed 20 because that approximated the historic use of these 18 acres. Every single one of our villas, you hear that water, you hear those waves, you hear that pristine beach. There's always this sense of the blues and the greens with the trees that are there, the sea, the sky, and so that became part of our color palette with the blue pearl and the green pearl, and then the white pearl as the sweet, an element of pearlescence. When you look at a pearl, it's never purely white. There's sheens of color, almost like the guest is the pearl, enclosed in this beautiful shell when you come and you stay with us. All the materials that are part of the guest experience are materials that are local and have some significance, things that are very integral to Kerala and to a beach environment. I wanted this one element to be a beach equivalent of a late Baroque period mirror that was heavily carved, and we did that with shells. The idea of an edible landscape is to make the food-bearing part of the garden, even working around existing trees in the shape of the restaurant. We wanted it to be something that is all around you, the way it is in nature. That was really what we wanted, this whole kind of barefoot elegance, just enjoy the sand between your toes. It's a place that because of its simplicity, we can rediscover someone, and maybe that someone is ourselves.
Yeah, another interesting thing about this project was that what this paved way for was that an entire unit of, weavers of the thatch started living within the facility. So it's almost become like a way of life for them, where just before every monsoon, the entire thatch is changed. The entire food over there is grown within the facility, so it's a farm to plate kind of a setup. And the whole idea of that started off with just being sensitive, paved way for a system where there are no plastic bottles anywhere within the facility, and it became a way of life. Moving on, we'll still stay in Kerala. We do a little bit more within Kerala. This project that I'm going to show you is basically a royal palace. The royal family of Cochin had this temple that was built, the Sri Krishna temple. And over the years, they obviously, because they are royalty, figured that they need a place to rest when they came and visited the temple. So they built this very modest but extremely dignified palace home. And like it happens with most of our heritage structures, over the years, it got dilapidated, there were termites, all of that, until the client decided to give it a new lease of life and tied up with a chain called the CGHR to run it for them as a small 5-room, hotel stay, but where you're treated as royalty. So obviously the challenge of working within this very, very beautiful but heritage structure meant sensitivity around the kind of craftsmen we engaged with, the kind of materials we chose, and the interiors that we built within. This is to give you a sense of what the inside looks like. Very, very heavily adorned with all the local crafts of that region. I'm sure a lot of these will seem familiar to you because, I think there's a lot of similarity in the kind of language over here and what you see in Sri Lanka. That's again some more shots of the interiors. That's the lock, the famous Manichitra Tar. That's a very beautiful, intricately carved lock that's used. Moving on, I'm going to take you to another context, which is the Fort Kochi part of Kerala, which was essentially, so what's interesting about, I think, Kerala and parts of this region is that it's probably the only place that was, ruled, the Dutch came, the Portuguese came, the British came. So there's that little influence that you see in a lot of their ways of the way they built. So the Fort Kochi, the Matanjeri part of Kerala, was really where all the godowns were. The spices are sold here. So you can see that it's through these really narrow by lanes that all the hustle happens. So we had this opportunity to convert an old godown into a boutique hotel. And what was beautiful about this site was that it had the most breathtaking views into the inland as soon as you entered. So that's what you see as soon as you enter. So we created this infinity pool facing the entire water body beyond. And what you see on your right was the old godown building, and a large part of it was actually left intact to kind of tell the story of how old it was, the material that it was built with, which was laterite. And so parts of the cafe, we actually let the walls remain to almost to say that I wish we could tell you about what the walls saw over the years. The other wing is really where the rooms were created. And that's what the rooms look like. So again, the rooms have this old world charm with beaten brass, cement tiles, oxide finishes. And that's the suite room that faces the most breathtaking view with water on all the sides. And the restaurant, which also faces the entire area. Can I proceed? Do we want to stop for questions? Can I continue? If I'm going too fast, too slow, please feel free to tell me. Otherwise, I'll just continue. All right. Yeah, so we're going to still stay put a little bit longer in Kerala, in Thekadi, which is where you have the Periyar flowing, and it's known for the elephant sighting and the cardamom plantation. As you go further up to Munnar is where tea is cultivated. This little bed and breakfast hotel, which has just 15 rooms, each room kind of different from the other. A little, dated space where you have the old staircase that leads you to the attic, little hidden corners, spaces in a very playful nooks and corners built entirely in granite. Made use of the entire terrain of the site, which is why you see all these levels. Again, moving on, we're going to move to another very interesting context. For this place called Kodangalur, you can see where it kind of is located in Kerala, is very interesting for many reasons. One, it's the cradle of Islam, Christianity, even all the religions first came into India through this particular space. What is very unique to the context of Kodangalur is that the oldest known fort in the world, we're talking what, 3000 BC, which is the Muziris fort, was discovered here back in 2008. For many years, it was known that India's thriving fort was some part of South India, but the excavations here revealed that it was in Kodangalur. So when we were asked to do an adaptive reuse of an existing resort in Korangalur, I think the onus and the responsibility of what do we want to design? Like, do we want to tell people about the history of the place? Well, then we'd end up creating a museum. Did we want to uh, tell people about, just the culture of the region? Would that seem too preachy? So I think there are a lot of these questions in our head as to how do we tell people to take pride in what this place stood for. So to give you again a little bit of context, a lot of excavations are still happening as we speak, and the kind of terracotta they found trade links with the Romans, with the Greeks, with the Africans. I mean, there were coins. I mean, it was an absolute treasure trove, to say that we are talking years way before even Indus Valley civilization. So that's just to give you a sense of the time frame. Now, what's also interesting about this place is that there is a beautiful weave that is done out of a grass over here, with which they make mats. So we did want to kind of try and use that into the project. I think I'll take you through a little video first, and then we'll come back to the project. I think the video. You just move ahead, sorry. Yeah, so there was this entire heritage room that was built entirely. So again, an interesting thing about this project, the reason I called it adaptive reuse was because it was on the waterfront. We were not allowed to build any square foot of new space. So we had to build and redo the entire built up space that existed. So like I was telling you, we used this as an opportunity to kind of use the local weave as mats. And another interesting thing we realized in the process is that the very famous Kanchipuram saris weave temple border comes from this particular grass itself. So we tried and kind of introduced that in the weaves with the natural handloom weavers that we worked with. We created these little niches, brought in local potters to put in their art. And each room, like I promised you, is different from the other. There are no two rooms that look similar to each other, simply because they were as built. That's the reception area. We wanted to give a little story, a little peek into. So all those languages, alphabets that you see are the countries that museums did trade with during that period. We tried and married the old Kerala screens with a very modern lattice reception table. The flooring that you see is entirely handmade tiles from Attangudi. The restaurant was a little bit more modern in its feel. We were trying to, bring the feel of the water. On the ceiling, what you see are basically maps that showed the trade links between the countries that are just used within the roof. That's the video for you. I'd just like to add this 15-room property built on 2 acres of land was built in about 900 rupees per square foot. And I think you may have seen a little glimpse of the before and after. So it was a very, very difficult budget to work with, but I think we tried our best to kind of do justice to the history and the value of what the space held. Moving on, we're going to move to another region, which is on the Konkan part. It's a place called Gokarna in North Karnataka. Again, I'd like to give you a little context of where that is. So we've gone a little upward up above Kerala, but we're still on the Western Ghats. Again, to give you a little context of how the site is seated within. Yes, so this site too, like the other one that we discussed in Marari, because of the coastal regulation, there was more than 100 meters that we had to leave from the beachfront. So while you can't see the beach directly from the room, you can hear the waves and you can walk up to the beach. Another interesting thing about this space is that when we first saw the site, we realized that while the space received really good rainfall, it also had water shortage in summer. So one of the first things that was done was to build 3 lakes of almost 30 lakh million liter capacity. So the first activity that happened on site was to build the lake, and then we're very proud to say that till today the entire project's water requirement is taken care entirely by the 3 lakes that are built. They are totally self-sufficient, and this project is perhaps one of the most sought after experiences for an Ayurvedic experience in India right now. Each room goes at about $3,000 per night, and that's the kind of tariff they demand. And I think what's been a victory for us is that we were able to demonstrate this using very, very humble, local, honest materials that we drew from the site. So when this entire lake was dug up and the water came in, we had a lot of soil, and this entire belt has the laterite that is intrinsic to the space. So the laterite blocks were made out of what was scooped out, and each cottage was built almost like with a courtyard space outside of it, and you can see that very little cosmetic decoration has come into the space. It's just red oxide, laterite, and wood in its absolute experience. The craftsmen had their share of fun trying to do the convoluted, twisted arch. What you see is the laterite stone all around, the local thatch again done by the people here, and the pool with the dome structure that you see is the meditation hall. To give you a little bit more peek into how the laterite was used in different spaces, the arches, the interiors where it took meandering forms. In the same location, some years later, we had another interesting client, a family that fell in love with India, decided to build something in India, but this dream took them about 15 years. We worked with an architect from UK and helped him translate his manual drawings on site into this 6-bedroom private villa, which is now given out to the people outside as well. So what you see here is a labor of love of the family that collected a lot of craft artifacts over the years. since it was the same region of Gokarna, you will see the same laterite stone repeating itself in various exposed forms. And the view that they held, and you can see it's a celebration of old wood and all the artifacts that they collected over the years. But it was given a very contemporary context. We're all creature comforts. I suppose every holiday has to come with all of that. The bathrooms, we tried this entire language with oxide finishes in blues and greens. And moving on, I'm just going to quickly take you through some visuals from various areas where we've truly felt that we have to reuse and old materials in ways that we can form a statement. So this was an entire porch that was created in Munnar in Kerala using old woods that we had pulled out from a dilapidated home nearby. The interiors continued the same language. To give you again a few more views of the sky from through the glass porch. Another interesting project that was built entirely out of bamboo. What's interesting here is that the whole ability of bamboo as a lightweight material and ferro cement as again a lightweight material was used, which is why you see that the columns are so slender. That's again, each building was a different block and office space that was done. Again, some sections and some photographs to show you the space. A few more views. You can see that the language is again very minimal. We feel like the nature around has so much to offer that if we can just build around that, we might be able to create beauty just like that. And that's just some more photographs for you. And thank you very much for being so patient through the whole presentation. I hope I've stuck to the timeline that was given.
So dear participants, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them now. Your participation enrich our discussion.
I think it's been a long evening. I understand it's a working day. So if there is nothing that anybody has, I'd just like to thank you all very much once again for being so patient and hearing me through this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So dear madam, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to you as per the resource person for share your invaluable knowledge and insight with us. Your expertise have inspired us all to rethink our approach to sustainability and architectural designs. And a special thanks goes to planner Pierre Silva for gracing us with his presence and for his kind words of welcome. Let's continue to collaborate and innovate as we work towards a more sustainable future. Thank you once again and look forward to our continued journey together.
Thank you so much.